Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
In this module, I will continue the discussion on water footprint, and specifically we will solve some problems for the calculation of water footprint. To recap what we have done so far, we have understood that there are three different types of water footprints. Green water footprint, which captures the amount of rainwater consumed. This is most common in agriculture. Blue water footprint represents the use of water from the fresh water or groundwater sources, and grey water footprint captures the water required to assimilate the pollution that is being generated. So these are the three different types of waters. Now the question is, how is the calculation actually done? So when it comes to green and blue water, the important challenge here is to calculate the water consumed during evapotranspiration in the plant growth phase. If you have industry and if water is being used in an industry, the water will almost always be blue water because it will be taken from some groundwater reservoir or surface water like lake or river. And in almost all cases, you can have very good measurement of the water that is being consumed. So when it comes to industrial water consumption, the calculation is not that difficult. The important challenge though is to calculate the water that is required by plants when they are growing, because that is not something that is easy to calculate. And that could be because of green water if the plant is using rainfall, or it could be a blue water source because of irrigation. So we need to really understand how evapotranspiration is determined. Now the option here is, one is to do detailed measurements. So you can have actual measurements at the plant level, crop level, and find out how much water is being lost because of evapotranspiration. So that can also be done in some cases, but it is not feasible to do this all the time. And therefore, in the most common approach used in water footprint calculation is to use models. And the model that is commonly used is known as the CropWatt model. So CropWatt model stands for crop water requirement model. And this model gives you the water required for the evapotranspiration process. I will not go into the details of the CropWatt model because that's a more agricultural engineering oriented topic or agronomy oriented topic. But just to give a brief overview, the model essentially compares the base evapotranspiration. So there is a reference evapotranspiration which is known as ET0, and then for every crop, let us say rice, wheat, jowar or sugarcane and so on, there will be a crop specific factor. So that crop specific factor will capture the evapotranspiration for that particular crop with reference to the standard rate, which is captured by ET0. And that gives you the crop water requirement. So that on one side you have the calculation of the crop water requirement. The other challenge is to know how much of this water or evapotranspiration requirement is met by green water and how much is met by blue water. So here you need to understand what happens to the rainfall and so on. So in the first module, when I introduced the concept of green water, I mentioned that when the rainfall occurs, water is stored in soils, and from soil it is taken up by the plants. So the water that is used in such a way, or rainfall that is used in such a way, is known as the effective rainfall. So there is a total rainfall that falls on the ground, which is typically measured by meteorological departments, but a fraction of that will be the effective rainfall. Now this fraction depends on factors such as the soil type, the slope of the soil, and so on. And again, there are modeling tools available. So one popular model is SWAT model, which is the Soil and Water Analysis Tool model. It estimates the effective rainfall based on the total rainfall and all these factors such as the soil type and slope and so on. So here again you take help of a modeling tool if you are doing a water footprint calculations. So to summarize, the left hand side talks about the crop water requirement, which is estimated using the CropWatt model. On the right hand side talks about how to calculate the effective rainfall that helps you distinguish between green and blue water. If you need additional information about these modeling tools, I refer you to the water footprint manual, which is available on the website of the waterfootprint.org. And this manual has additional details about these models. So let us solve a very simple example. I am taking this example for the state of Maharashtra and the crop is sugarcane. For the sake of simplicity, I have ignored a lot of details. So for the sake of simplicity, let us assume that the sugarcane has 4 growing seasons. For each of these growing seasons, I have shown the stage-wise water requirement, total water requirement or crop water requirement. And I have also given you the total rainfall available. So, or the effective rainfall available. So the goal here is to find out the green and blue water requirement for 1 ton of sugarcane. So this is the data that is given to you. So this shows 4 different growth phases. It shows the effective rainfall in millimeters, so 400, 300, 100 and 0. And it also tells you for each of the crop growth phase what is the total crop water requirement. Now if you have this information, you can calculate the green and blue water requirement. So let us see how that can be done. It's a fairly straightforward calculation. So you have the different crop water requirements. So you have growth phase, you have effective rainfall and the crop water requirement. So these can be seen on the slide. So you have, now once you have this information, you can calculate the green water and blue water by simply doing a balance or the simple calculation. So in first phase, if you see, the crop water requirement is 300 and your effective rainfall is 400. That means you have more rainfall than you need, and therefore the green water requirement is going to be 300, because here in this phase you can argue that you have the crop needs only 300 and you have more rainfall available. So all the water requirement will be met by green water, and the blue water requirement for this phase will be 0. And you can do a similar calculation for the other stages. So in the second phase, your crop water requirement is 500 and effective rainfall is 300. So you will use all the 300 mm of water, but the rest of the 200 mm will be provided by blue water, and so on. So if you can do this calculation, as I said, this is a fairly straightforward calculation. You can fill this table like this. So once you have this information, once you have this calculation, then you can just simply do a sum. So the total green water requirement for sugarcane is 700 and the total blue water requirement is 1300. So this number can then further be used. So the question was to calculate the water requirement, green and blue water requirement for 1 ton of sugarcane. Now that you can calculate by looking at the yield and so on. So those calculations are straightforward. I will not go through the details. So just to again go back to the problem statement, the question is to determine the green and blue water footprint for 1 ton of sugarcane, assuming 80 tons per hectare of yield. So you can do these calculations. The calculation that we did gave the green and blue water requirement in terms of millimeters. You can convert that into hectares. You know, every hectare has so much, so generates 80 tons of sugarcane, and therefore you can do the calculation. So it's a straightforward unit conversion calculation. The point here was to illustrate how, given the effective rainfall and the crop water requirement, you calculate the green and blue water requirement. So this is a more detailed example. This is taken from the water footprint manual. The approach here is the same. Of course, the level of detail is more. As you can see here, this problem is for the production of sugar beet in Spain. As I said, this problem is taken from the water footprint manual. Here they have divided every month into 3 different stages, and there are several months, so April to September, so 6 months, and every month is divided into 3 phases. So you can see that there is obviously a lot more detail. It's more refined calculation, but as far as the approach is concerned, it is the same. So here you will see the effective rainfall. That is the term that is given here. It is in millimeters for every period that is considered. And you also have the crop water requirement, which is given here. So ETC. So in the first period, for example, the crop water requirement is 10.2 millimeters. Your effective rainfall is 12.6. So just like in the simplified example for sugarcane, you have more rainfall than the crop water requirement, and therefore all the water footprint is accounted under green water. And that is how the rest of the calculations are done. So you get a table for green water footprint and blue water footprint, and if you do the total addition, which they have done here, you get the total green and blue water footprint. So conceptually, obviously you will follow the same procedure. If you need a very detailed number, a very specific and very accurate number, you will have to consider very small time steps, maybe go to even a daily level. If you want a gross estimate, you can probably work at weekly or 15-day time step. So it really depends on how much accuracy you want. Obviously, if you use a very small time step, you will need that much more data, and you will need to make sure that the data are available for these calculations. So let us solve a second example, which actually includes both green, blue and grey water footprint. So here the problem is again related to sugarcane. If you look at the problem carefully, let me just go through the problem statement. So the system here is focused on production of refined sugar. So this refined sugar here is the final product that you are interested in. And of course the main source for this refined sugar is sugarcane. So sugarcane farming is the first stage, and you are given the green and blue water requirement for every ton of sugarcane. So that number is already given to you. Now what happens to the sugarcane is that once the farming is done, when the sugarcane is available, it is sent to the sugar mill where sugarcane crushing happens. And once the sugarcane is crushed, I have shown what percentage by mass goes to which stream. So 20% by mass is raw sugar, which could be sucrose. So if I process 1 ton of sugarcane here, I will get 200 kgs of raw sugar. 130 kgs is bagasse, which is waste. I am considering it as waste, so there is no value. And the rest is water. So 67% by weight is water. So this water is considered as wastewater. Now what happens to raw sugar is, the raw sugar is further refined. So I am aggregating the refining process in a single box for the sake of simplicity, and I am focusing only on the water requirements. So the raw sugar is sent to the refining stage, and at the outlet you get refined sugar. And the mass balance is given here. So it says that 0.95 tons of refined sugar per ton of raw sugar. So if I process 1 ton of raw sugar, I get 0.95 tons of refined sugar. Additionally, the problem statement says that in the refining phase, sugar refining phase, you need 10 meter cube of process water. It could be for cleaning or some purification and so on. Let's not go into those details. But the information given to you is that the process requires 10 meter cube per ton of refined sugar of process water. So this water comes out without any losses. So you are putting in 10 meter cube here, 10 meter cube comes out, and this water is mixed with the wastewater that you are getting from sugarcane crushing, and this is mixed together, and finally you get wastewater which has a pollutant load of 10 gram per meter cube. So whatever is the pollutant, this is a very simplified problem for the sake of illustration. So there is some pollutant in the water which has a concentration of 10 gram per meter cube. The load or the regulation for the water body in which you are discharging this wastewater is 8 gram per meter cube. So the question now is to calculate the green, blue and grey water footprint for 1 ton of refined sugar. So the question is, what are going to be the footprints for 1 ton of refined sugar? So let us go through this problem stepwise. So in order to do this calculation, you first need to find out how much sugarcane you need. So the objective here is to find out the impact or the water requirement for 1 ton of refined sugar. So your product of interest is 1 ton of refined sugar. Now, in order to get the 1 ton of refined sugar based on the mass balance that I had given, you need 1.053 tons of raw sugar. This is based on that 0.95 factor, and in 1 ton of sugar cane you have 20% of raw sugar. So you again, if you do the conversion, in order to produce 1.053 tons of raw sugar, you need 5.263 tons of sugar cane. So now you know how much sugarcane you need, and the problem statement already tells you what is going to be the green and blue water footprint for 1 ton of sugarcane, and therefore you can directly calculate the green and blue water footprint. So the green water footprint based on the information given to you is going to be 457.9 meter cube, and the blue water footprint is going to be 825.6 meter cube. So these two numbers are coming from the information given about per ton of sugarcane of green and blue water. So I only needed to know how much sugarcane I need. So in order to produce 1 ton of refined sugar, I need this much of sugarcane, and the information was already provided about the green and blue water footprint per ton of sugarcane. So that was a fairly straightforward calculation. Now the calculation of grey water is slightly involved. It requires additional calculations. So let us look at that. So first you need to calculate the total amount of water, that is wastewater, that is generated. So one source of wastewater is obviously the process water, and that you are already told is 10 meter cube per ton of refined sugar. Okay, so the total water generated, since we are doing all the calculations for 1 ton of refined sugar, the process water stream is 10 meter cube. But if you look at the problem statement, it says that this water is mixed with the water that you get from the crushing. So you need to calculate that term. Now we know that we need to process 5.263 tons of sugarcane, and 67% of that is the crushing water. So I will call it as crushing water, CW, for the sake of simplicity. 67% of this is going to be 3.52 0.526 tons. And if I assume the density to be 1000 kg per meter cube of water, I assume that it is same as pure water, then your crushing water generation is 3.526 meter cube. Okay, so you have two sources of water. One is the process water, which is 10 meter cube, and the second is the crushing water. So the total process water now is, or total wastewater, is going to be the sum of these two. So it's going to be 13.526 meter cube. So this is the water that you are discharging to the water body. Now let us see what happens to this water. So you are also told that the total pollutant concentration is so the pollutant concentration is 10 gram per meter cube. Okay, and the total volume of water is total waste water is 13.526 meter cube. So the total pollutant load, okay, so total pollutant load, which we also call as L as per the notations here, is going to be 135.26 grams. So this is the total pollutant that you discharge into the water body. For the sake of simplicity, again assume that the natural, in order to calculate the grey water footprint, you need to know the natural water pollutant load in the receiving water. Let us assume it to be 0 gram per meter cube. And C max is given to you as 8 grams per meter cube. Okay, so you have all the information to calculate the grey water footprint. So if you look at the equation, the water required is going to be 135.26, which is the total pollutant load into the water body, divided by 8, which is C max, minus 0, which is C natural. So this is in grams, this is in grams per meter cube, and therefore the total water required is 16.90 meter cube. Okay, so if you have a volume, if you are discharging, what this means is, if you are discharging 135.26 grams of this particular pollutant, and if you want to achieve 8 gram per meter cube, which is the maximum allowed, and if the water body naturally has no such pollutant, then the water volume required for this 135.26 gram is 16.90 meter cube. Now the question is this your actual grey water footprint? The answer is no, because you are not discharging this pollutant in pure form. It is already mixed with certain water body. Okay, so it is the total water, if you remember, total water that you are discharging is, we had already calculated it to be 13.526 meter cube. So that means the grey water footprint is the water that you need in addition to 13.56 that is already there. So this 135 gram is already dissolved in 13.526, but in order to meet the criteria, you need 16.9. So your water footprint, gray water footprint, is going to be 16.9 minus 13.526, and it will give you 3.374 meter cube. So this is the final gray water footprint, and all these calculations were done for 1 ton of refined sugar. So I hope this clarifies how the gray water footprint calculation is done. So these are again some numbers to reinforce the point. So just to conclude, let us look at some examples of the distribution of the water footprint across the 3 categories. So as you can imagine, many products that rely on agriculture as the source will primarily have green water footprint because a lot of agriculture uses rainwater. Some things that may not be so obvious, where chocolate, for example, chocolate has a very high water footprint, and almost all of it is because of green water. So this is the water required to grow the plant that eventually gives you cocoa, which is a raw material to manufacture or to make chocolates. I have also given the water footprint for petrol or gasoline. This is in liters per liter of petrol. This is from a different source. All the other numbers are from, again, waterfootprint.org website. So you can understand a little bit more about the distribution now. When you look at the product, you can also try to see what is the distribution among the green, blue and gray water footprint. To conclude, I also want to emphasize or discuss about 3 different concepts that are sometimes considered to be the same. So these are water withdrawal, water consumption and water footprint. So it may seem that these are similar concepts and they mean the same thing, but that is not the case. These are 3 different things. And let me explain that again by using a figure from the water footprint manual. So the water footprint, as we have already seen, it includes the direct water as well as indirect water. And it includes the green water footprint, blue water footprint and gray water footprint. What this means is that when you are doing footprint calculation, you calculate the direct use. It could be from rainfall, it could be from ground or surface water, and it could be water related to pollution management. And you not only consider the direct use, but you also consider the indirect use. So that is happening upstream of the actual production process and so on. So for example, when you are calculating the water footprint of chocolate, you are not only considering the footprint of the chocolate facility, manufacturing facility, but also the plants or agriculture, which is the indirect water use. So water footprint is a very comprehensive number from that point of view. Water consumption, on the other hand, only limits itself to the green and blue water. So it ignores the gray water footprint. So I made this point when I introduced the concept of gray water, that it estimates the amount of water needed to take care of the pollution. Whether that much water is used or not is a different thing. But green and blue water represents the water that is actually consumed, and therefore water consumption is only the green and blue water, both direct and indirect, and it excludes the gray water footprint. Water withdrawal, on the other hand, which is actually a very commonly used or reported term, is only the surface or groundwater that is removed. So if you come across the water withdrawal number, you have to remember that it ignores the green water footprint, it ignores the gray water footprint, it completely ignores any indirect use. So it's a very restrictive term. Water withdrawal is only the surface or groundwater that is taken out from the respective sources. Moreover, it considers the non-consumptive water use. Okay, so water withdrawal is a very narrow term in that sense. So you can almost say that water footprint is a very comprehensive concept or term. Water consumption includes direct and indirect use of water, but it ignores water pollution related aspects. And water withdrawal is only the water that is removed from the particular source. So it's important to note that these are three different concepts, and you should not assume that they are the same. So the important learning outcomes, of course, we solved a particular problem, and I specifically explained how green, blue and gray water footprint can be calculated for a particular product. And I also talked about the different concepts related to the water footprint. So it could be water consumption, water footprint, and the third concept was the water withdrawal. Okay, so these three concepts are different, and they need to be differentiated. Thank you.